everybody. Welcome to episode 26 of Eat, Drink, Write, an Urban Fantasy Whiteboard. Our topic today is going to be showing versus telling. So first, how was your week?
It was pretty good. I love when I have like accidental writing days. Should have been working, did not work, and instead had an accidental writing day. So I wrote about 2,000 words that day on Aiden, which is the one that I'm rewriting right now. And so that was pretty sweet. Otherwise, like work has been busier. I'm going back into lab more. I'm like setting up lab, making sure it's good for people to come back to and that kind of thing. And of course, UGA is like, we're going to be full open in fall. So we've got all these face masks and but you also don't have to wear them. So I'm like, which means people aren't going to be wearing them and all that. So I'm just making sure the lab is like sanitized and that the lab has access to masks because we will be wearing them. So that's been pretty much it. Is just gearing up work. So.
Yeah, we just got notice from the public schools here in Gwinnett that they're going to in-person school in the fall, but everybody has a choice to do 100% digital or 100% in school. Oh. So we're still waiting on my test to come back on the COVID. If I've had it, if that's what I've got this week, then that means Riley's probably had it and she may be safe to go back in person, but I would prefer that she be 100% digital. So she's going to talk to her friends and see what they're going to do. And because they're not mandating masks either.
That's ridiculous with the numbers that are going on right now. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. And that many people packed into a school. It's the high school. You've got 4 grades with all the teachers and all the custodians and everything all crammed in there together. I think it's a bad idea, but
so too.
We'll have to see. If I've got COVID, she's probably got COVID. That's my week was mostly being sick. I didn't do hardly anything. I feel fine when I'm laying down, but when I get up, I'm very tired and my chest still hurts a little bit. I'm not coughing as much, which is good. And the fever is gone. That's good. So I'm finally feeling almost human.
That's good.
Yeah. So that was my week. What are you eating and drinking?
Today, so I'm trying to do like be healthier, I guess. So today I'm just eating cashews. It was going to be apple and peanut butter, but I didn't feel like putting in the effort to cut all of it up and everything. So, and then I'm drinking Darjeeling tea, which is a black tea. And to me, it has like a more citrusy flavor than like my usual English breakfast tea. So I like drinking it in the afternoon because it's kind of refreshing, but it also still has caffeine. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm drinking tea from the Peacock Tea Room. It's the Irish whiskey cream, which is one of my favorites. So that's what I'm drinking. I'm not hungry still, so I'm not eating anything. I've lost 5 pounds just since last Friday, so I've got to eat more. The only thing I'm craving are non-keto things, so that's what I've eaten some of that. So, and I'm still losing weight.
Right.
But so that was my week. Hopefully the results will come back. They're due by today, so we'll see if I've got it.
I know there's a lot of.
If I do, I have to quarantine for another week or so.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff about how like testing capacity in Georgia is not very great and like pushing tests through labs is not great. So Courtney was saying that Jacob, when he got tested for COVID, his test was supposed to come back within 5 days and came back in 10. So, So yeah, we'll have to, that might be the case for yours too.
By the time it comes back, I'll be, whether it was positive or not, I'll be done with quarantine just about.
Yeah.
Weird. That's weird.
Yep.
I have some jokes.
Oh, of course you do. Let me hear your jokes.
So one of them is Riley's. That's my 14-year-old daughter, your sister, and she made it up yesterday because I was complaining about trying to find jokes, writing jokes.
Okay.
And she's like, "What do you call a book with no eyes?"
A normal book?
That's the answer. It's a book. Books don't have eyes.
Oh no.
And so I was finding these other ones, and she's like, mine's better. And I'm like,
Oh my God.
okay, I'll use
Spoken like a
yours.
14-year-old.
14-year-old humor.
Hmm.
And then I did find another one. Why are writers always cold?
Why?
Because they're surrounded by drafts.
Bless. That's a pretty good one. That I'll give that one. That's a pretty good one. Considering I have like a million drafts in my folders right now. That
Yeah,
yeah.
me too. I actually started organizing my book that I'm editing right now. And my very first book, what I'm doing is reading, and then I've made myself a chart where I put what characters are in that chapter, in each chapter, what the conflict was, what I seen, what the point was, because some of it is really, really bad. I mean,
Yeah.
20 whatever years ago that I wrote this book. I guess 30 years, because Courtney wasn't born yet.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah. So some
Wow.
of it is really bad. But I bought notebooks to start organizing my physical 3-ring notebook that I do. And I started printing out pictures and all of that. So I'm well into the editing mode on that one.
That's exciting.
I am excited.
That is very fun. I can't wait to read it. I think I said that last week. I'm like very anxious. Like I'm anticipating it. I want it.
It's going to take intensive rewriting. I mean,
Yeah.
really, truly rewriting. Some of it's bad. The chapter, I was reading chapter 5 today, and I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. It is just awful. I switched point of views. I have them thinking the dumbest things, not realistic thoughts, not realistic dialogue. Oh,
It's funny going back and rereading old writing. It's also very cringy.
but the storyline is really good.
I remember the storyline, and I do
So
remember it is really good.
I am excited to rewrite this one.
Yeah.
But let's jump into it. We're going to do show versus tell. We all
Yeah.
hear about that. They drill it into your head as young as elementary school, you know, you show, don't tell.
Yep.
And so we're like, well, what does that mean? So I found these are the 2 sentences I found on what that means. Number 1, a telling sentence tells us something. And number 2, a showing sentence shows us something. And I'm like,
oh my God, that's
wow.
So profound.
That was very helpful. So what does it really mean? So basically, telling is where you're communicating something to the reader, but it's in a factual sense. It's kind of dull and lifeless. You're just communicating information across. It communicates information, but doesn't involve any of your senses or the scene or anything like that.
Right, like there's no like action involved in revealing this information. It's more just like straightforward.
Right. And then it just tells us, there's no feeling to it. It's reporting the facts. Think of how boring it is to sit in meetings where you're getting the facts. You know,
Oh,
here's
I'm a
the chart.
scientist.
Yeah. So that's basically telling. It's a report about what the character is. The character's cold, tired, hungry.
Yeah, or even things like happy, sad, angry, like those kinds of things too.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I was researching this, I saw that, you know, one of the tips I came across was the words feel and felt are almost a sure sign that you're telling. So it's like, you know, he felt like he was going to pass out as opposed to the world tilted beneath his feet kind of thing.
Oh, that's a great way to check through.
Yeah, no, I thought that was super interesting because you can just, you know, control F on your document, assuming you use like Word. I think that's the command for most programs is to go and find a specific word. And you can just control F, feel or felt, and you can jump right to and be like, oh, I definitely was telling in this sentence and I can change it to be this. So, yeah,
it was funny editing my twin saga. After researching this, I'm like, oh my Lord, there is so much telling in that story.
Yeah.
He goes off in his thoughts about the history of the whole world, and I'm like, no.
Oh.
No.
Right.
So yeah. So showing, on the other hand, is where you describe the scenes and actions that are happening. It lets us see the scene by using clear, specific details to build strong pictures in our mind. It helps your reader experience the scene rather than just be told about it.
Right.
It helps your reader feel and immerse themselves in what's going on.
Yeah, it gets the reader engaged and like holds their attention better. Because I think showing allows us to relate to a character more than just being told about that character.
Yeah, the alley was dark. Okay, well, she's stumbling, whatever,
Right, right.
you want to feel it, you want to be there. The secret is the use of specific details, and use your senses. That helps get across the feel of that scene.
Right.
It makes that scene come alive.
Yeah, it makes it like more vivid, and like stand out in your reader's mind. Because some of the best scenes that I've read definitely use showing, and it's because I can see what the character is doing, and I'm there with that character as they're like going through whatever it is they're going through. So
yeah, it's like a movie in your head. I mean, those words build that scene in your head, and you're there. You're with that character as you're reading the book. So how do we do that?
Right.
You use action words, strong verbs.
Yeah, focusing on character actions, I think, is a really good point. Character actions and reactions, because that just gets across. Right, yeah, because that shows you exactly what each character is feeling, and not necessarily just your main character, but you can show, what side characters are feeling as well, just by their actions and showing us what they do, kind of thing.
Like that, reaction is a really good way to put that.
Yeah.
You can use dialogue and character thoughts to show versus tell. Don't do what I was doing just in chapter 5 of the Twin Saga, where his thoughts were like, once upon a time, there was a war 1,000 years ago. I mean, oh my God.
Right.
Descriptive details, use all those senses. I think we talked about senses in several episodes.
All the time. Yeah, all the time.
The smell and the humidity in the air, which I write about Atlanta a lot. There's that humidity here.
Right.
Get that across. Use those words. Use those senses to make them feel it, as opposed to just saying, boy, it sure was humid.
Right. Yeah. And to go back to something you said earlier is, just be very specific. Focus on the little details, not just like large details, because that's really, I feel like, how you can get your reader really engaged with what is happening with that character.
And my Kata book, where she ends up going to that other world, it starts off in Atlanta, and this naked man is chasing her in the very beginning of the book, and she's running. It's summer in Atlanta. And I talk about the feel of the sweat, the hair. We've all had that. Your hair sticks to your face when you're sweating it. I mean, and
absolutely.
I described that instead of just saying, she was sweating.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You actually could feel that sticky hair in her face as she's trying to run and get away from this person chasing her.
Absolutely. I think I do that with Mac too, because she lives in Savannah, Georgia. It's a little bit further south and on the coast, and so it's extremely humid there. And yeah, no, I've done the same thing where she's like, oh, my hair is going to be 10 times its volume because it's going to frizz in this humidity kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a great way to put that picture in your reader's mind.
Yeah.
I found some examples, and I took a lot of these from our paragraph writing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was kind of cool because I was trying to think of sentences, and I didn't want to steal the ones that had been used on the articles I was reading. I wanted to come up with my own, and I was like, wow, I should go through some of our paragraph writing, because we worked on things like showing versus telling in some of those.
Right.
So the first one is not from our writing. It's just one that I made up. It's the telling sentence is, her room was messy.
Right.
The showing sentence, and before I get into that, remember that there are terms that are very subjective and vague. That messy to me might be what's behind me, but messy to a hoarder is going to be something entirely different.
Right.
So remember that words are subjective. And so that's why it's important to add a little bit of detail so that your reader can get that clear picture in their mind. You want them to use their imagination. Like I was told by one writer that had critiqued me at that Atlanta seminar we go to.
Yeah.
And he said, you don't want to say, monster. You want to you want to leave it to their imagination, but you got to give them enough details to be able to come to a picture in their mind.
I remember that. There was also there's a quote, not by someone that we listened to at a conference or anything, but it's picture a monster, and then it's like, what did you picture, and what makes that a monster? So I think, that can apply here, because it's the same idea. You probably thought of something, big and scary, or, with sharp teeth or something like that, whatever.
Yeah.
But in your writing, if that is not necessarily what you're trying to get across, I think you can show exactly what you want your reader to see as a monster by showing actions or descriptions or that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. Okay, so her room was messy. The showing sentence taking that is, sighing, she spotted her notebook across the room. Sighing as she spotted her notebook across the room, she gingerly stepped over her piles of clothes and books, using the side of her foot to make a path among the debris.
Yeah.
So that's a totally different picture I just got in my head than saying her room is messy.
Right.
I mean, I'm seeing the mounds of clothes and the books scattered across the floor, and she's trying to get across the room, and all this stuff is in her way.
She's like trying to step over it, and
yeah, we learn a lot from that second sentence, a lot more from that second sentence than we did from the first one. We can envision the mess, the piles of junk. Her sigh tells us something, that she's not looking forward to having to step across all this junk to get to her notebook.
Right.
Kind of makes me wonder why is she in this messy room, and if she's upset about it, why hadn't she cleaned it?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm getting all kinds of questions in my mind from that showing sentence that makes me want to read more, whereas I don't really care. Her room was messy, big deal. I don't care to read on.
Right. There's no painting of an image there. So, right.
The rest of the examples are from our paragraph writing. So the telling sentence, I don't like children. The showing sentence, and you wrote this, children suck. And right now I was knee deep in the snot-faced things. I wanted to cover my ears to escape from their incessant whining, screeching, and crying. Instead, I plastered a smile on my face, pretending that this is exactly where I wanted to be.
I don't remember writing that, but cool.
Yeah, I don't think I wrote it. I could have. I feel like it's yours, though, because I don't remember writing it.
Well, it's up in the air.
So, but that sentence shows us a whole lot more than saying, I don't like children. Do you really get the feel of her not liking children?
She really hates children.
Yeah, snot-faced things, the incessant whining, screeching, and crying. She's plastering a smile on her face.
Yeah, and pretending that this is like where she wants to be. So, yeah.
I think that's really well done at showing her dislike of children rather than just saying she didn't like children.
Right.
The next one, the telling sentence, I took the knife out of his body. I mean, granted, that kind of gets your attention because she's taken a knife out of somebody's body.
Right.
But to show, I yanked the dagger out of his chest cavity, having to twist it a bit to pull it free. Hot blood seeped over my hand, the one I had flat on his chest, pushing while I pulled the dagger out with my other.
That gets across a lot of imagery.
Yes, I'm right there. I can see her hand on his chest as she's pulling out the knife and the blood oozing over her hand.
Right, and it's hot, like hot blood oozing over her hand, so you get across like the sense of touch and like all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, what's funny, these sentences, none of our paragraph writing is edited, so there are things we could do to have made that a better showing sentence.
Right.
But it's pretty good. I mean, the smell of blood,
right.
That kind of thing. But that is definitely a much better showing than I took the knife out of his body.
Right. Yeah.
The next one, I think you wrote this one too. I dug a hole. That's the telling sentence. I could feel the blisters on my palm from hours of using the shovel. Even in the dark, I could tell the mound of dirt next to me now towered above my shoulder. The torch that Jax held barely lit the hole where my feet were hidden in the depths of shadow. And he was shaking so badly, the flame flitted more like a firefly than a steady beam of light it was supposed to be.
Huh.
You think you wrote that one?
Probably. It feels vaguely familiar.
Yeah, I feel like it was yours too. But yeah,
Yeah,
that one,
interesting. I think it's funny that it is mine though, because as I was reading it earlier when I got your notes, I edited it in my head. So I went through like the sentences and I was like, oh, I would write this as this now. But no, I think it is a really good way of showing what this character is feeling, especially with the blisters and
I love that.
how they can't see because of the dark and like the light beam is shaking because Jax is scared. So you're like also showing side characters and what they're feeling as well.
Yeah, I think that definitely is showing us we're right there in that scene. I'm very curious as to what's going on. I think they were burying a body, if I remember that correctly. I'm not sure.
I think you're right. Yeah.
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 We'll have to do another mini episode on some more of our paragraph writing. We come up with some great things, but that was one of them.
Yeah.
The next one, I walked home in the cold. That's telling. The showing sentence is, the mist left tiny droplets on my skin that eventually merged together to drip down my back beneath my jacket. I shuddered against the cold, peering into the fog as I doggedly placed one foot in front of the other.
Nice. That's a good sentence. I mean, like that's a good couple of
Yeah,
sentences.
definitely tells us a whole lot more than I walked home in the cold.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It tells you a little bit about, what the character is feeling, tells you a little
Mhm.
bit about the surroundings and the setting. No, that's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah, I like that too. I was proud of us.
No,
I,
that was
I
great.
love our paragraph writing.
Yeah.
Now, all of this doesn't mean you can't tell. There are times when it is absolutely appropriate to tell.
Right.
If you need to get information across, telling is sometimes the most effective way to do that. Like when time passes, you don't want to do that. She went upstairs, pulled the covers down on her sheets and to get under the bed. We don't need all of
Right.
that.
Right.
So you can do a transition of telling, and you don't want to have showing all the time too. There are times when you need to tell to get information across. So we're
Right.
not saying that it's a thing that you should never do.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
it is used to cover ground when you need to as the narrator.
What do you mean by that, actually? Can I like interrupt here? And what do you mean by cover ground?
Like to move from one place to another, 3 days later, whatever, you're moving, you're telling your
Okay.
reader that time has passed, but you're not telling them all the crap that happened in that time because
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not important to your story. So
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
you're narrating through to move forward.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Even I'm trying to think in the Mercy books, Patricia Briggs uses telling sometimes to get from like a fight scene. We don't have to go through the whole aftermath of everybody calming down and returning back into humans and all of that. That is done. She kind of tells us, she
Yeah,
moves
he went
through
to go
those.
change, and
Yeah,
he went over here to tend his wounds or whatever. We don't have to
yeah,
like see that action kind of thing. Yeah, I get what you're
right.
saying.
Yeah, she doesn't have to break down the bones every time that one of them changes. She
Right.
can tell us because she's done it before. So we already know the agony that they go through when they're changing into their werewolf form. She doesn't have to do that every time. She can tell us that's what's happening and then move on to the crux of what we need to hear.
Right. Yeah.
And then I think you had some more things to add that I hadn't thought of.
Yeah. So you mentioned Patricia Briggs, and she's a good example for this type of thing too. Is like when you're doing a small recap of a previous book. So say you're like writing a series, and there's a lot of telling at the beginning of some of those novels, just to get across known information that has happened in earlier books. And obviously, you're not going to show all that information. But say someone picks up book 3 instead of starting from book 1, and the way that she does Mercy is like you can pretty much do that,
Yeah.
and each book is its own story. But there is information that needs to be given to those readers, and so like a lot of the time that is done through telling rather than showing. And then also, like you said, it's a balance. You don't want to have too much showing. You don't want to have too much telling. But I think you need like a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And then I had a few more little things that I came across as I was researching this. Always show emotions to help your reader understand characters' actions. So like I think showing emotion is really important. Like you never want to say, oh, he was angry.
Right.
You never want to say like, oh, he's sad. I think you want to show that through their actions so that we can like really understand it.
You know who does a really good job of that? I talk about her the Grave Witch series, Kalena.
Oh, Alex Kraft, Kalina
Yeah.
Price. Yeah.
Kalena Price. She does that really well. The main character in that works with the police, and there's this police officer, this gruff police officer that she works with, and she showed his anger by the bristling of his mustache. She could see the mustache bristling, and I loved that scene because we got to see how angry he really was. And
Yes.
that always sticks in my mind as a way to show anger as opposed to say, oh, he was mad.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
Try to keep showing concise. So this kind of goes back up to, making it a balance. So make it concise, make it a few sentences that are descriptive, imagery rather than like long paragraphs. Because same thing, like if you have long paragraphs of just like all this description and showing, personally, I would get bored with that. And I'm sure a lot of other readers would too. And then also avoid adverbs unless they're necessary. And I'm talking words like very strong, or very, there are better words.
Really?
Yeah. Okay.
That's
yes.
mine.
Yeah, you like the word really a lot.
Well, Beck likes the word really a lot.
Fair.
I don't think that I ever used the word really in the Trick book at all.
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure I've read that, but I don't remember. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
It's a Beck thing.
And there are many things that are just Beck things, and she is one of a kind.
She is one of a kind. I feel like it would be neat to do more information on this, on ways. I loved that you came up with, search for feel and felt.
Yeah.
I would love to have an episode, maybe a mini, on how to edit specifically for showing versus telling. I mean, like that is one way to do that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Because I am really guilty of the telling a lot.
Right.
I was,
I meant to put it in here, but we could do it in that mini where, how do you identify whether it is showing versus telling?
Yes.
And I meant to do like a little blurb and I forgot about it, but it actually works because we could do a mini on that.
I think we should, because I want to know myself now that I'm in editing mode. I mean, granted, some of it I'm looking at, it's clearly telling when he's talking about the history of the entire world there. That is not the way I need to get that across. But in the freaking fairies, I didn't catch that I was telling because it was a lot of the beginning was in her mind. And so to me, it wasn't telling, but everybody that read it said, yeah, that's telling. You're telling us about her family. You're not showing us her family.
Right.
So I definitely need help on how to find it, how to edit for it. How do I know when I'm doing it?
Yeah.
Because I clearly can't find it out myself.
No, we could definitely do a mini on that. That'd be fun.
I think that's a good idea. So we'll plan that, guys.
Yeah.
Was that everything you had, or do you have more?
I have one last thing.
Okay.
Also try to avoid passive voice unless necessary, like, I was playing, or she was playing, or he was playing. That's also very telly as opposed to showing.
I'm bad at that too.
Well, I also am. I remember editing one of my books, and it was brutal to go through and find all of those things, and now I'm actually completely rewriting that book. So, yeah. So, but yeah, that's all I have on tips. I do have an interview question.
Oh, great.
Who is your favorite side character in any one of your books, and why?
Probably there's one, I don't remember her name because it's been so long since I've read it.
Yeah.
Wrote it, both. In that Kada book, I like the young teenage characters.
Yeah.
There is this snarky girl in the Kada book when she goes to the other world and is having to try to deal with everything that she knows nothing about the culture there. She knows nothing about anything. And she's got this side character who is really helpful in that snarky teenage way.
Yeah.
And I love her, but I can't remember her name off the top of my head. Isn't that terrible? I can't even remember my own characters' names.
Wasn't it? I don't remember either.
I can see her as plain as day.
Yeah.
And I
I
love
can't
it.
remember, but
She makes me laugh out loud too
yeah,
when I get to her points, because she's just so, you don't say things like that. What are
yeah,
you doing? You don't do things like that. And she does.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. I like all of your fairies and frickin' fairies.
I do love my fairies. I think Leary is probably my favorite fairy. She's the one that knows all the rules.
Ah, yes. So
So she's the
yeah,
most adept at helping you sidestep them
yeah,
and to holding other fae accountable for things they're trying to do to this human who doesn't know any better.
right.
Like, oh no, that's not the rules. Like the leprechaun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. She comes
It's
across a
so good.
leprechaun. Yeah. And
I love it.
Leary's the one that's like, you know the rules, leprechaun. And he's going,
You have to do this.
uh-huh. So I like Leary a lot.
Yeah,
All of the fairies have their own distinct personalities and
they're fantastic.
troublemaking traits. They are
Yeah,
really funny. But that's also that kind of teenagey character. I love those characters. What
yeah.
about
Well,
you?
when you've got like snark and like, mischief, yeah, no, they're a lot of fun. They're a lot
Yeah.
of fun. For mine, I really love Monroe in
Yeah.
my most recent book. And the reason for that is because I had a plan for him and he waltzed onto the page and did his own thing and became something completely different than what I was expecting him to be for that story. And it works really well, I think.
Yeah.
So he is a lot of fun to write, mostly because I feel like I'm not writing him. Like I feel like he is very much his own character. He's got his own way of thought. And he just says things that I would never say and just goes for it. Like he just does it.
Yeah. I agree. He was a great character. Yeah,
He's a lot
my
of fun.
fairies are that way too. When I'm sitting down to write, I'm like, oh, let's see, what are they going to do today? Because I
Yes.
don't know. I
They
don't know
just
what they're
do
going to
it.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Monroe is a lot of fun.
Neat. Well, let me find the outro. I had it a minute ago.
You had it
Oh,
before we start?
I did. I found it.
Wonderful.
Okay. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry we probably weren't as funny this time. I'm still not feeling great, but I do appreciate you all being here. Our website is eatdrinkwritepodcast.com. You can contact us there. You can get to all our social media from there. All kinds of stuff we have there. We got links and downloads and worksheets and that kind of thing there. Pictures of our food and drink. So leave us a review. We still have stuff to give out, little notebooks and sticky notes and calendars, although we're halfway through 2020. But it would be kind of neat to save a 2020 calendar, given all of the weird crap that's happened to everybody this year.
True.
Something to remember for the rest of our lives. Please support us at our Patreon, patreon.com/EDW podcast. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.